A badge of honor. Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But that's not how it feels today, and the stress of the job is taking its toll, taking lives through suicide and post-traumatic stress injury. A Badge of Honor podcast features the cast of the same name, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno. Sam, John, and the team offer the first responders workshops through their critical incident stress management teams and mental health liaisons to offer state-certified T-Cole credit programs that save lives. It's time to smash through the stigma. It's time to heal from your injury, and it's time to back our blue. Welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast. Here are your hosts, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor, broadcasting you live from the OBBM, powered to you live from OBBM Network. As you can see, it's all me today. Sam is taking care of some family business, but she will return next week. But we still got a great show for you today because you got me here. And guess what? You are not alone. Man, tonight we're going to talk about the stigma and the stigma of mental health. We all feel it throughout our country. There are many departments out there across our country that still have the rub some dirt on it, get over it type attitude. And that's just not the way the mind works anymore. The mind absorbs so much trauma, especially in a police officer or first responder's career, that it doesn't know how to, the coping mechanisms that we all had, the resiliency that we all have starts to break down a little bit due to the stress and the traumas that we see every day. The most important thing with this is that the traumas that we receive during our job, right, on a day-to-day basis, we stack them because we're on to the next job. We brush it off. We move on to the next call. We brush it off, move on to the next call. We get very little sleep. We go home. We wake up. We're back in uniform, back in the saddle, and back doing the job again. So that trauma that affected us gets pushed down, and we start laying some more trauma on top of us. And then once we retire or we leave service for whatever reason, all those traumas are going to start to come out because we never handled them the proper way. This past week, I want to thank Todd Geary, Police Officer Geary of the Garland Police Department, for opening up his doors once again in the whole Garland Police Department, because they are one department that smashes the stigma within their department. They opened it up for a Badge of Honor workshop this week, and we had about 20 officers from around the surrounding areas who were really into it, very interactive, and got a lot out of it. And everybody left there with a little bit more mental health tools in their toolbox. And tonight we have a former officer from Wisconsin who was battling. He went through all the things that we all go through, but he's taken another steps further, and he's going to help smash the stigma. Please help me welcome Adam Meyers. Let me see if I can get him on here. Hold on a minute. There we go. Hey, Adam, how you doing? I'm still learning this whole broadcasting thing. How you doing?
That's all right. Good, John. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is such an important topic that we need to talk more about, and I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you very much. You know, Adam, you did 21 years in Wisconsin, you know, and what they say, what experts say, what psychologists say throughout that whole thing, doesn't matter what department you are, big or small, you know, a 20-year career, an officer will sustain anywhere from 600 to 800 traumas. Some long-lasting, some that will go away. The average citizen in their lifetime suffer maybe 3. That's a huge difference in what our law enforcement, our first responders go through. And you have hit that mark with that 21 years. So give us a little background about yourself, and then we'll get into the smashing the stigma.
Okay. Well, thanks again, John. My name is Adam Meyers. I'm a former detective with the state of Wisconsin, was a police officer for 21 years. In 2016, I was involved in a critical incident when I used deadly force against someone who had armed themselves with a hatchet inside Walmart in our community. The person was with 2 chaperones. They refused to leave the store. I was dispatched there. made contact with this person after they were threatening customers with the hatchet, gave them multiple verbal commands to drop the hatchet. They continued to walk towards me, and I shot them twice, and they died hours later. I was out of work for about a month, went back to work. I felt great. I wanted to go back to work. The support I was getting from the police department, from the community, even from complete strangers was wonderful. Complete strangers would come up to me when I went back to work and said, "Hey, are you the cop that was involved in the shooting?" And I would say, "Yes, I was." And they'd want to give me a hug. They said that they prayed for me. So it was great. You know, about a year later, I was promoted to detective. I was the only detective on the police department. So I continued to go to multiple critical incidents, continued to do my job well, was awarded, received commendations, stuff like that. But I struggled in silence for many years. One of the things that I did was I abused alcohol. Alcohol is legal, obviously, and it's very easy to access. And when I say abuse alcohol, I mean I really abused it. You know, before my shooting, I would drink wine and collect wine. But after my shooting, I would have a glass of wine similar to this, and I would also combine it with, you know, ZQuil, some allergy medicine, and make my own, you know, kind of cocktail. And
Right.
there was even one time that I looked inside the medicine cabinet and saw my oldest daughter's cough medicine that had codeine in it. So I decided to add that to my drink as well. I continued to drink, abuse alcohol. What I would do is, before I would go somewhere, I would rationalize that it would take about 30 minutes for alcohol to kick in. So I would hit the local gas station and I'd buy maybe 2 or 3 of these double shot things of whiskey, cinnamon whiskey. These were my best friend at the time. And I would, you know, consume them right away after I bought them inside my vehicle. And then when I was done consuming them, I would either throw them in the back of my car or I would throw them out the window while I was driving to my destination. This is ridiculous. I'm very lucky that I didn't hurt myself, take somebody's life, get in a crash. And, you know, I had very, very poor coping strategies with alcohol. I experimented with marijuana, casual sex. I mean, there was times that I would meet somebody and within 30 minutes we'd be having sex. And at the time, all of those things felt great at the moment, but it didn't help me. The only thing it did was cause me more stress, more anxiety, more worry, mask what I was going through. It didn't help me at all. It just kept stacking up the problem.
It's that instant dopamine
gratification.
rush. And
Right,
so many
right.
officers out there, first responders out there are doing that because we're so used to that immediate adrenaline rush. We're going from 0 to 120 and getting all pumped up. And so that's all we know. And that's the culture. When we talk about
Right.
drinking, me and Sam talk about this all the time, is that, you know, 21 years ago, that was the norm. That's how we were you know, walked into the police department after shift, choir practice. Hey, let's go out and have a few beers. And that's how
Sure.
we decompressed from the shift. So that was almost muscle memory. It's just, hey, I'm having a stressful day, grab a beer. I'm having a stressful day, grab a beer. Now we're finding out the effects of what that mental stress of the day is causing our first responders. So
Right.
they are not properly being decompressed. They're not properly given the time to heal themselves, heal the wounds that are inside them. Because we all know if the wound was visible, our bosses would turn around and say, hey, take a couple of weeks off, you know, get that arm fixed, get that leg fixed. But when it comes to the mind, since it's not a visible injury, we seem to put it aside or say, hey, rub dirt on it.
Exactly. I've always said that, you know, if I would have broke my arm, broke my leg, hurt my back somehow, something visual, something physical, it would have been taken care of right away. I mean, I still had an obligation to myself to take care of myself, but I didn't know how to do it. You know, I was depressed. And on top of that, you know, I'd have a thing of vodka like this. I'd down the whole thing in 30 minutes. I'd drink until I blacked out, and then I'd sleep the day away. I was a drunk. I completely wasted my time. I was having multiple pity parties for myself. I even remember one time when I drank, a lot, and I texted my parents and I said, I need you to put $50 in my account. I can't tell you why, but I need $50. And I didn't realize, I don't even remember doing that. And the next morning, when I did my normal morning routine, I remember looking at my phone and I'm like, oh my gosh, I texted my parents. So I called my mom right away and said, hey, I'm sorry. They knew what I was going through. But I said, I'm sorry, I don't need $50. And my mom's like, well, your dad already put it, in your account. And I said, well, I'll send you a check. I'll send you some money when I get paid next. And they're like, keep it, get a pizza, because I'm an emotional eater. So that just, I ordered a pizza, and that helped for a little bit, So.
Well, you're not alone, because so many people suffer in silence. And
Right.
like I said, and you hit a couple of the emotional eating, the sex, the drugs, the alcohol, the hypervigilance that we get into, the dangerous activities, the porn, everything encompasses what our brains are still looking for, that dopamine rush, because we have to get out of that fight or flight. We don't know what the best way to do it is.
Right.
I don't want to trigger you. I don't want to trigger you
Right.
with that Walmart scene. Now, something like that, and a lot of people who aren't first responders that are watching the show and listening to the show, when you have to pull the trigger because somebody disobeyed your commands to, not hurt anybody else, somebody's waving a hatchet, of course, you have to do what you have to do. But that is one of the hardest things to do for any human being, is to take another human being's life. Even if they're being threatening, you don't want to end someone's life like that. But deep down that if you don't, there's that possibility he's going to kill other innocent people.
Right. And this happened on a Friday at 5:15 p.m. It was very busy. I remember while I was responding, the call became more and more emergent. Initially, they said this person was trying to get a knife out of the packaging. So I thought it was going to be like a pocket knife. Not to say that that's any less threatening or dangerous, but when I made contact with this person and they turned and faced me, I saw the hatchet and I thought, oh my gosh, that's not a knife. I remember shooting, and I remember pulling the trigger twice, and I remember the shots being so loud, like broken speakers. And then I remember it seemed like everything came back to me, and the only thing that I can explain is it sounded kind of like shh, and then everything became clear again. I remember looking at an end cap and seeing these brightly colored beach towels, and just looking around, and everything seemed surreal. I couldn't believe it. I know I did the right thing. Given the same circumstances, I would do it again. But I lived, worked, and played, and even shopped at that Walmart, and lived in the community where I was a police officer. So I had been to this Walmart many, many times. Every time I go into a Walmart, usually they're all set up the same. So it's a constant reminder. I'm okay now. It's taken many years.
Let me ask this. But back in 2016, the law enforcement was just going through that transition. That and we're seeing it now. We're seeing the devastation of that transition. That many officers are reluctant to pull their firearm or to neutralize the threat in fear of the riots, in fear of the backlash, in fear of the indictments, the woke agenda. So that split-second decision could cost the officer his life. Was there any moment in time, if you remember, that popped in your head going, I have to shoot this man in order to save everybody else, but what if? What's going to happen to me? Did you think about repercussions? Did you think about any of that prior to you pulling the trigger?
Not at all. I knew I had to do it. And I understand the responsibility that comes with that. When I decided to pull the trigger, not only did I take a life, but I changed people's lives. And that's something that is I don't take that lightly.
Of course not.
Because this person had a daughter, this person had a mother and a father that will never be able to see them again. And it's just something that I know I had to do, but not an easy decision.
No,
but never once did I think, well, time out. I shouldn't do this. I knew I had to, and I know I had no other choice. And one of the biggest things was, at the time, my chief was so supportive that almost immediately he reached out to the media and said that he supported me. And that meant so much to me that I actually printed out his statement and put it in a frame, and it was sitting on my desk at work until my career ended May of 2022. Because when you go to work and you still have a rough day, when you know your boss and you know your coworkers support you, especially your chief of police or your supervisors, that means everything. Almost immediately, he went out and said that I support Officer Meyers. I support, what he did. And I know he was being genuine, because he would say that when he didn't even know I was around, hearing him say that.
Right.
So it wasn't a bunch of BS. I could be around the corner and I could hear him defending me, saying Adam did the right thing. So I knew he was genuine, and that really made me feel good, because when you know your boss supports you, that's so important.
That is a huge thing. And we're going to talk about the support our officers today get when we get back right after this.
Move freely, America, without medical restrictions or penalty. Without medical freedom legislation in place, our rights and freedoms are one vote away from being dissolved. Move freely, America, with one voice, without fear of retribution, achieving a common goal: medical freedom. We the people make our voices heard by connecting with state legislators and engaging a constitutionally compliant medical Bill of Rights for all citizens. Individually, change is improbable, but as an aggregate, attainable. It's time to act with one voice. My voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
To protect our freedom, creating one voice that cannot be ignored. This requires your voice, too. Move Freely America. Go to movefreelyamerica.org to find a chapter near you. Plug in, donate, and help our legislators defend our God-given rights under the Constitution. Move Freely America. My voice.
And my voice.
And together with your voice, we're one voice that cannot be ignored. Donate today. MoveFreelyAmerica.org.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor with John, and not Sam. Sam's on a little hiatus this weekend, but we have Adam Meyers, former Wisconsin police officer with 21 years of service. Thank you, Adam, for joining us today. You hear my dogs in the background. I got 4 rescue dogs. But we were talking about critical incidents. We were talking about mental stress, and we're talking about support. Now, support comes in so many different fashions. It's either friends, family, colleagues, and then we have our bosses, right? So we need support from each one of them. But if one of those 4 do not have the knowledge of what mental health is all about, we have a breakdown. We have a broken link somewhere in that chain, right? And that can affect us mentally, physically, and it could cause us to second guess whatever we want to do. So, you had an amazing chief who would support you in your things. I don't think today's chiefs, not a lot of them, are so as supportive as they were back then.
Yeah, my chief was great. Like I said earlier, almost immediately he made a statement to the local media and said that he supported me. And this is what he said. He goes, I think he believed that he had no other choice. Who is about Officer Meyers, who is on administrative leave. I support him. And when I saw that, I printed it out, I put it in a frame, and I set it on my desk. And when I was having rough times, I looked at that and I thought to myself, hey, my boss supports me. That's great. It was still a struggle, but I knew that, the leader of the police department supported me, and that was important to me. I even had board members come up to me and say, how are you doing? We support you. I hope you're doing okay. So that all of that is just so important, especially when
your administrative leave. How from the day of the critical incident to the day you went back, what was the administrative leave? The paid administrative leave? How long?
I think I went back to work a little less than a month. I was cleared and back to work. Yes, sir.
Do you think you were mentally ready to get back?
At the time, yeah.
At that time, yeah.
Looking back now, no. At the time, yes, I wanted to go back to work. I remember one of the officers told me when I went back to work, they told me, you know what, Adam, you could be done right now. If you just don't want to be a cop anymore, you can say this critical incident's too much for you. You could totally be done, retire, duty disability, whatever you want to call it. And I thought to myself, no, I love being a cop. I want to work. I want to keep going. But looking back now, I think I went back to work too early.
Yeah, I agree. 30 days is really not a lot of time for us to really digest, especially with taking a life, digesting all that, because even the first week, it's going to take a little time. And then did you have counseling? Did you talk to anybody? Or was it just the basic 3-day thing, or they said just go home and we'll see you when you feel better?
Well, my shooting happened on a Friday, so I was off for the weekend, and then on Monday I went to the sheriff's office and began the interviewing and investigating the critical incident. I did see a therapist, just like my TAC patch says, and I continue to see a therapist. 8:00 a.m. every Tuesday, I see a therapist now. Shortly after my shooting, I did, and I remember the first couple times going and thinking, why am I wasting my time? This person has no idea what I'm thinking, what I'm going through. That was a complete freaking waste of time. And
wait, let me stop you right there. Because you're saying a waste of time, we hit on this so much. Was the therapist a cop or some grad student that was being a therapist that had no idea about first responders?
Right. It wasn't a trauma therapist. It wasn't the right type of therapist. I see the right type of therapist now. I do EMDR. I've done biofeedback. I've done DBT, and that's all very, very helpful. I just wasn't seeing the right person. And, when I was in therapy shortly after my shooting, it felt good to get it out, to vent, to talk about it. But then when I would leave, I'm thinking, this person has no idea. Why am I wasting my time? So then I would take a month off and then go back for a couple weeks and take 2 months off. And I just didn't care. It seemed like a complete waste of time, because no matter what I said to this person, they wouldn't understand me anyways.
Right.
So I just continued to try to, cope with alcohol, with other means that I thought was working for me, which those poor coping strategies absolutely did not work for me.
Well, like your thing says, I see a therapist, and therapy is so important. When we brought up those 4 support networks, therapy jumps in there as well, because so many officers go from couch to couch to couch, talking to people that do not understand, or don't fully understand. I don't want to discredit them, but do not fully understand. They're there to listen. It's great. They don't know how to heal. They don't know how to treat, because they're going from you who just shot somebody to a marriage counseling to my child sucks to, whatever they're taking on. You need a trauma therapist that's dedicated to first responders. And now we're starting to see more and more of those pop up that know stuff like EMDR and brain spotting and all the different therapeutic things to really make you heal, not just a conversation of sitting on a couch for 50 minutes. So therapy is very important, because then guys get frustrated like you did, and said, this is bullshit. I'm just going to go drink. Right.
Well, and another thing is, I'll take this patch off and put this one on. I take medication, and that's okay. And I have them right here. I take 20 milligrams of Lexapro every morning. And then I also have something called propranolol, which is a blood pressure medicine from when I have anxiety to take, as needed. It works for me.
Okay.
And it's okay. If you have to take medicine, that's fine. There's so many of us so many first responders that do. Sure, we don't skip around and tell everybody our feelings all the time and say, hey, I take this, or hey, I take that. But I do. And I'm that transparent that I'm not the only one, and I don't care what people think. This helps me. It helps a lot of people, and I'm going to continue to, take medicine if it continues to help me.
Transparency. Let's jump on that bandwagon, because that's another thing that heals. If we are not transparent in our mission, if we are not transparent on what we do, then there is no healing. And we have to come to terms with that. We're the only ones that can do that, to become transparent. We have to open up. We have to learn, and proper support and therapy is what helps us open up and tell our stories and get those things out. So transparency on every level is very important. So we still got a little bit before we take our next break. I want to jump into Smash the Stigma, Stop the Threat. Okay. That is an organization that you started.
I'm the founder of Stop the Threat, Stop the Stigma, and it's a pretty basic concept. In 2019, I began sharing my experience with other first responders in hopes that it will help others and inspire others to do the same. Like I said before, most first responders don't like to sit down and talk about their feelings, and that's okay. But it's so important for healing. It's so important to reach out if you're struggling. And there's so many ways to do it now, through text messages, through Facebook, through other social media. So if you're watching right now, and if you need help, please reach out. You don't have to get up in front of people like I do. You don't have to do a podcast like I'm doing right now and tell everybody your feelings. Even if you don't know what to say, just go to somebody and say, I need help. I don't know what to do. That's okay. And first responders will not do that unless they're confident that they aren't going to be shamed, and that they're not going to be judged, and that they're not going to lose their job. All my life, I've always wanted to be a police officer since I was a little boy. And after 21 years, my career ended. So it's a struggle for me. And what I am now is I'm a certified peer specialist in the state of Wisconsin. And what peer specialists do is they utilize their lived, experiences, personal and professional experiences to support others and demonstrate that recovery is possible, that it's okay what you're going through. Just like your shirt says, you are not alone. There are so many people out there that have gone through and that are going through what you're going through. You're not alone. Just please reach out somehow to get help, because people care about you. People love you. And there's so many people out there that want to help you, and don't suffer in silence.
Now, I see Stop the Stigma, Stop the Threat. How does, because I've never heard that term before, but I'm very interested in it. Stop the Threat. Where does that come from?
Well, Stop the Threat, Stop the Stigma. The threat is actually the stigma that surrounds mental health. The threat is your mental wellness, your physical wellness, because people won't reach out for help. That's a threat. That's a threat to your life, to having a safe and successful life, career, and just being okay. And there's so many first responders that die by suicide. And like I asked you a little bit ago about props, I'm going to share an experience now that might be a little triggering for some people. This is a complete solid plastic replica of my duty weapon. No workable parts. But at least a dozen times I put my gun to my head and pulled the trigger. It's a 40 caliber Glock, Model 22 Glock. I removed the magazine, racked the slide, and all I wanted to do was hear that metallic click. And why I did it, I don't know, but I did it when I was intoxicated. I very well could have accidentally killed myself. So please, if you need help, send an email, a text message, reach out. There's so many people that are there that will help you. Complete strangers will help you. It's just so important. What scares me about what you just did with putting the gun to your head, and I get it, but the click, that metallic click, that is gearing yourself up. That's gearing yourself up for the bang. The click, click, bang. It's almost like a Russian roulette. It's almost trying to ease the body's mindset to say, okay, this time it's going to happen. It conditions the body.
And you know what? There are so many cops out there now that are probably sitting in their apartments or their homes with their firearm, contemplating, thinking about it, because their coping mechanisms are skewed. Their resiliency is broken down, and we have to find a way to build all that stuff back up.
Absolutely.
So I love to stop the threat, stop the stigma. I like the tagline. It makes a lot of sense. And it hits home now that you explained it to me. The vest. The vest is another thing that really, really sparks my interest, because we wear a bulletproof vest all the time that says police, and that's our identity, right? And it's our identity, it's what we live by. But now to put that on our barrier, what we want to protect us, you're showing us that our mental health is important, and that barrier is okay. You know, I love the subliminal message on that. How'd you come up with that? Oh, I think we froze. Did we freeze? We froze. I think he's a little frozen. We'll be back, but we'll take a short break, and then we'll come back once Adam unfreezes.
Interested in starting a podcast or TV show? Worried about what you'll say and how to keep it engaging? Think you'd like to be a guest on podcast, radio, or TV shows? Hi, I'm Susan Hamilton, owner and founder of OBBM Network, and I would like to invite you to an OBBM media training to get the tools you need for a relaxed and polished performance you'll be proud to share. Our specialized training techniques include role play, voice training, and everything you need to deliver a confident, clear, and engaging interaction. Go to offbeatbusiness.com. Go to the calendar and register for a training that's convenient for you. Dates available now, 214-714-0495.
Hey, we're back with a Badge of Honor podcast powered by the OBBM Network. We lost Adam for a second. His screen froze. I'm sure he'll be logging back on. You know, that Wisconsin internet is probably a little. So he's back here. Hey, Adam. We're just talking about that Wisconsin internet.
There you go.
But I know you froze. I don't know if you remember what I said or if you're able to hear me about, you know, the vest is really a symbol. And then we always have police or DEA or, you know, whatever it is, that
right.
protection factor, right? But now you're putting this vest on and saying it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to see a therapist. It's okay to talk. You know, it's something we identify with, and you're making those big words on that vest identifiable for others to see. So how did this all come about? I mean, I've never seen something like that, and I think it's a great idea.
Well, I just I was trying. I like visual aids, as you can tell, because I learned from having visual aids, and as a firearms instructor, I had to order these tack vests that say firearms instructor, and I thought, you know what, that could be another visual aid. Like you said, we all wear tactical vests, and the new thing is the exterior carrier with the patch on the front, the patch on the back. So I reached out to a company and I said, this is what I was thinking about doing. And they said, absolutely. And a company actually donated this exterior carrier for me as well. And I just recently ordered even more patches with my mental illness diagnosis and with some other stuff. You know, I have this where I talk about hypervigilance. That's something that is pretty exhausting. Recently, my girlfriend and I went to a bookstore and a restaurant where I had never gone before, and it was pretty exciting. It was we had a good time, but I was so hyper vigilant that I really couldn't enjoy it as much because there were so many people there, and it was an environment that I wasn't really familiar with, right? And this doesn't define me. This one talks about hypervigilance. This is some of my poor coping, drugs, alcohol, and casual sex. This doesn't define me. This is where I was during a period of, extreme trauma. I was able to get through it, thank God. And it's just, it's the truth. It's the truth. This is where I was at one time, and it's okay. And I want everybody to know that. And but when it comes to the vest and it comes to mental health, we need to take the vest off. We need to take the vest off and take care of ourselves. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to put that vest on again. You won't be able to go out and protect the community and do a job that you love and help people if you don't take care of yourself.
The hypervigilant and going to the bookstore, so many of us have that where we live with our head on a swivel. We're constantly head on a swivel, looking for the threat, looking for that something to happen, right? And that really blocks our good time. And we bring this up in our workshops when we go to the grocery stores. I mean, we're in Texas, so everybody carries a gun. But even when I was back in New York, I go to the grocery store, I go to the movie theater, I go to the beach, I'm carrying my firearm. My mind is already in that mindset, anticipating something bad is going to happen. So when we already have that mindset that something bad is going to happen, I know every police officer out there before they go shopping with their wives or their first thing is, all right, there's going to be a mass shooting, there's going to be a casualty incident. I better bring my firearm. I better bring this, because that's the culture we're brought up in. That's what that's our job. But that takes away so much from our families, our friends, because we do not know how to enjoy. We don't know how to have a good time most of the time.
Right. I agree with you.
Now, I want to give a big shout out to your daughter. We spoke a little bit. Let's give her a big shout out because you're a proud papa, right? You're a proud dad.
I am.
She is now part of Wisconsin's finest, right?
Right. I have two beautiful daughters, two great daughters who are 25 years old and 21 years old. My youngest daughter right now is in the police academy, and I'm very proud of her. And I never thought that she would pursue law enforcement as a profession, but it's also makes me a little sad because I wish I would have been able to hang on for a little bit longer so I could have that daddy-daughter picture of both of us in uniform. And now the probability of that probably won't happen, but I'm very proud of her, and she's going to do great things.
But does she know obviously she knows about your battles. She knows about the things that you went through, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What happened with her is she was in 8th grade the day of my shooting. And she was actually at the mall trying on 8th grade graduation dresses when all these text alerts went out that there was a shooting at Walmart. And she knew that her daddy was at work, but nobody knew who the officer was that was involved in the shooting. And they really didn't know if it was an active shooter. They really didn't know what was going on. But she wasn't able to get a hold of me for hours after that. But she does. She shares her when I speak. Because I continue to go around and speak. There are times that she comes with me and she answers questions and she kind of gives her insight as to where she was and what she went through and some of the things that she experienced in school and stuff like that. So I'm just very proud of her.
I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a therapist. I am by no means any of that. But could I evaluate you for 1 second?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna give you the John Salerno evaluation real quick, because you said about you were looking forward to having that daddy-daughter picture in uniform, right? Is that you wanted that picture in uniform, right? And all my mind went back to is all she cares about is her daddy is still here. You went right back to identity. You went right back to the police officer.
Right.
That is not who you are. You are Adam, man. You are daddy. You are daddy. She sees you as daddy.
Right.
Cherish that identity. Take that picture with her in uniform. And I'm like right there. And it's no fault of your own. It's sometimes you've got to hear it from somebody else. But you know what? You said it twice that I wish I could have held on to the job a little longer to have that daddy daughter picture in uniform. But you know what? God puts us in a place where maybe you would have, not been able to take that picture, and that picture would have been her in uniform saluting your casket.
I believe that. Yep.
Right? So things happen for a reason. So let's shed that identity. Let's shed that. And so many retired officers feel that, I lost my who I am. No, you lost a job. You lost your job. You retired from your job. Whatever you did. Now you are you. And that's what we got to start teaching our kids in the academy. And that's why your daughter is so lucky to have somebody like you, because you can mentor her through her career, right? Where she's not going to have the same issues that many of our first responders go through, because you can bring those up to her. And to have a dad that's so trained and so welcoming, think about this. Your daughter is going to feel so comfortable being able to come to you on those issues. So that is a blessing that is 1,000 times better than a picture.
Right. And, that is one thing that I'm working through with my therapist is identity. Because when I was a police officer, I felt wanted, needed, I felt special, I felt important, I felt like I was helping people. But, my family, my girlfriend, my therapist, they all tell me, Adam, that's who you are. It doesn't matter what job you have. That's who you are. You got into the profession because that's who you are, without a badge, without a title as a police officer. That's who you are, Adam. And that's something that I'd continue. And I believe that. It's just something I'm working through so I can be more confident with believing it.
I'm 100% with you. I feel the same way. I've been retired over 20 years and I still miss the job. I would have done the job for free. And I tell people that. They're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, yeah, I would have. I love the job that much. I would have done it for free. I would have done it. I never wanted to leave the job, but because it's in our hearts, it's not on our patch. It's not on our sleeve. It's not on our badge. It's in our hearts to make a difference, to help others. Right. So like your therapist and everybody says, and your girlfriend said, is that you can't lose. Nobody can take that away from you. The only one that can take that away from you is you, by letting the demons, letting the monsters of stress and hypervigilant and not getting mentally healthy take that away from you. So you are by far doing the best thing for you and your daughter. So I commend you on that. Right. I definitely commend you on that.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Oh, so with the peer support, I'm looking at the website now. You are partnering with NAMI of Wisconsin.
Well, that's just one of the one of the resources that peer support specialists go through. If you go to Wisconsin Peer Specialists, that's who I had the training through, and it's actually a pretty pretty important process. You apply for the training, then you're interviewed for the training, and then they select you for the training. And it's 48 hours. After that training, you have to take a state test. And then if you pass that test, then you're a certified peer specialist in Wisconsin. There's a lot of other peer support trainings out there that's really important. And, you don't even need to be a certified peer specialist. You can just do peer support. If you know somebody that's struggling, you can support them. You don't need to be there and just listen. And you don't always have to say anything. Just be there. Just listen. Just reach out.
Another great point. Just there to listen. We're gonna touch on that real quick after we come back from this message.
Hi, welcome to Heroes in Action. I'm Ray Amanat, founder and creator of this training system. I originally made it so that everyone can train for free. We have programs for kids, for women, families, and businesses. I'm an author, speaker, and educator on everything that has to do with violence and bullying prevention education. If you'd like more information about who we are and what our programs are, please go to our website, at heroesinaction.us, or give me a call if you have any questions at 727-314-2534. We hope to see you here to train.
Welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast powered by the OBBM Network. We've been getting healthy, mental healthy, with Adam Meyers, from former Wisconsin police officer, 21 years, who now has a daughter in the police academy, which is fantastic. We're talking about our coping mechanisms, and we're being transparent. We're talking about smashing the stigma, or stopping the stigma, stop the threat, stop the stigma, which every law enforcement, every first responder goes through in their career at one time or another, some worse than others. And it all depends on, when we were talking about peer support, it all depends on your network. It depends on who you have in your corner. And just before we left, we talked about, you don't have to have a certification. You don't need that little thing on the wall to listen to another individual as they open up to you. But is the key word. Listen to hear. Do not listen to respond. We're not, most first responders aren't looking to be fixed. They're looking to be heard. Correct? Adam?
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, like when you were in therapy, when you start talking to your therapist, I mean, unless it's like EMDR or a healing process, you just want to get all that stuff out. You want to get that trauma out, right? Nobody can fix the trauma. Nobody can fix the trauma. I mean, the trauma is a trauma. Your brain is your brain. It's going to be there forever, right? But you getting it out kind of repackages it back into the file cabinet.
Right. In therapy, I enjoy going to therapy because I learn so much about myself. Every time I go, I'm like, oh, wow, that's why I did that a year and a half ago. That's why I did that last week. It's so important. And I learn from therapy, and I'll continue to go. Maybe, like I said earlier, I go every Tuesday at 8 a.m. I may not go every Tuesday. I may end up only going once a month, down the road, but it helps me now, and it's important to my recovery. So I'm going to continue to do that.
Identifying is another thing that you just brought up, and it was such a big thing. I recently had a, whatever you want to call it, an epiphany or whatever. My dogs, like I said, I have 4 rescue dogs, and it never bothered me when they bark. Never bothered me. They're just loving dogs, And when I come into the house, they get into their dog frenzy. They all want to be first to jump up on daddy and kiss him and hug him and lick him, right? But they all bark, and then they'll fight, and they get into a little frenzy. And I found out it's starting to trigger my anger, right? I start getting triggered because of the chaos of the dogs fighting each other for love, and then the barking. And I didn't know where that came from. And then one day I'm thinking about it, is that when I used to go on drug warrants, right, certain drug dealers would have pit bulls, and I just rescued a pit bull. So some of the drug warrants we would go on, they would use pit bulls as an alarm system, as before, in the yard, barking. And so identifying your triggers is a huge, huge step forward to the healing process. When you can understand why you're doing what you're doing, you're almost there to put that trigger back in the filing cabinet.
Right, exactly. And there's many things that I've identified as being a trigger, and some things that I'm slowly learning are my triggers. But I recognize them, and I work through it, and I am open and transparent about it. And there's sometimes I don't get it. I could be in a really crabby mood or really upset over something that normally doesn't upset me. And I take a step back and I think, all right, there's got to be a reason to this. I don't know what it is, but I got to figure it out, because it's not going to go away. It's going to continue. It's either going to continue at the same level, or it's going to get worse. And I don't want that. I want to be healthier. I want to get better, and I want to learn. So because I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be crabby. I don't want to be crabby around people I love either, because then they're not going to want to be around me.
Right.
You know,
and you don't want to live. We got this one
Right.
life. We got one life, you
Right.
know. When the music stops, we want to be able to enjoy another song, you know.
Absolutely.
Maybe, you know, Hill Street Blues song, but it's still a song, you know. We want to
Right.
we want to be able to be part of that.
Right.
You know, and with triggers, they sometimes they could really hurt us to the point where we can get depressed because we don't know why they're happening. But therapy, EMDR, all these things will help you identify those triggers, and you'll find out why you feel that way. And
EMDR was huge for me. For many years, I always thought I wasn't good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And I don't know why I was thinking that. But when I had EMDR, they said, okay, think about the worst part of your shooting and combine that with I'm not good enough. And I did that. And I'm thinking, that doesn't make any sense. If I wasn't good enough, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did in my critical incident. I am good enough. And I didn't realize that that's what I was thinking until I started EMDR. So for many years, I kept thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. And until EMDR, I didn't realize that's what I was doing. Because I would compare all my years in law enforcement how I was able to talk people down.
How many sessions of EMDR did you go through?
I think I've been through probably about 9 already, and I'm just about to start it up again. So it's been really, really helpful.
Now you work through, of course, you work through the Walmart shooting. Are you working through other traumas as well?
Yeah, we're going to start doing that now. After the Walmart shooting, I went to multiple other critical incidents, you know, just cumulative stress, cumulative trauma, and being the only detective on the department, I pretty much went to all of those critical incidents. So on top of still coping poorly with my shooting, I was still continuing to go to all these other critical incidents, and it just caught up to me.
Now, were you before we run out of time, were you alone in that shooting? Was there any other officers in there with you?
I was the only one. I was the only one. Yeah, I was initially dispatched. I arrived first. There was another officer that was responding from the police department, and another officer that was responding somewhere within the community. But I was the first one on scene, made contact with this person. They turned and faced me with a hatchet and started walking towards me, refused to listen to my verbal commands to stop or to drop the hatchet, and then I shot them twice.
Because what we see a lot is that multiple officers are in a critical incident, such as a shooting, right? But the one who fired, the one who pulled the trigger, right, they'll get their 30 days off, or they'll get their certain break from the job. But the guys that were with him or her at the scene, they're back to work usually the next day or the day after they give their statement. Now, trauma has no value, right? So what either pulling the trigger or seeing you pull the trigger and seeing someone get shot, that's still trauma. And we fail to see that in a lot of this. We put those officers right back to work. Oh, you didn't pull the trigger. You weren't involved in a shooting. We just need a statement, get back to work, go to the next call. You know, and that sometimes affects officers worse than the actual shooting itself. It's being put back in there, you know, in that seat.
And I think, you know, I went back to work, and I think, you know, I was the first my shooting was the first shooting in the history of the department. So everybody did what they thought was right. I thought I was ready to go back to work. I have no complaints. But I think maybe a lot of people thought, hey, Adam's back to work. Everything is good. If he needs something, he'll let us know. There was nobody following up if I was going to therapy. Every now and then they'd ask if I was okay. But I find it hard to believe that year after year that I was hiding my drinking and my other poor coping strategies so well. I just find it hard to believe that I was that good at hiding it. I mean, maybe I was, or what I think is people saw it and they just didn't know how to address it, or they just didn't want to get involved.
That's a whole nother topic. And when we get you back on the show, we're going to talk about how to address those issues. But this hour just kind of flew by. Adam, I want to thank you for being on our show tonight. And like I said, Sam wishes you the best, and she is sorry she couldn't be here tonight. But once again, go to www.stopthethreatstopthestigma.org. Reach out if you are battling. Adam, any closing statements you want to make? Anything you want to just give out there real quick?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I know that there's somebody out there watching right now. If you're suffering in silence and you need help, please reach out. Please send a text message, an email. Don't suffer in silence. There's so many people out there that care about you and that want to help you. And I know it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, it's awkward to reach out for help, but it's so important. Please do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, couldn't have said it better. Well, Adam, once again, thank you. Stay on the mental health road to healing, and we hope to see you soon. All right.
All right. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. All right. Bye.
Man, that was Adam Meyers with Stop the Threat, Stop the Stigma. What a great tagline. Talking about how he is being transparent is really big when we're on our road to healing. And he said it all about, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You are not alone. And when we talk about smashing the stigma and breaking the stigma, please join us on the third Sunday of every month. It's coming up on the 19th for Walk the Bridge. Walk the Bridge is takes about an hour. We have it in Fort Worth, Dallas, Fort Worth, Rockwall, Montana, Chicago, and London, England. We have first responders and veterans from all over the world walking a bridge or a park together once a month to really just connect with each other and to see that you are not alone. Go to walkthebridge.org for more information and to find a walk that is close to you. I want to thank all our resources and our sponsors, OBBM Network and Carry the Load, for being a part of our world and letting us be a part of your world, because we are all making a difference. We're all changing. We're all changing the stigma and smashing the stigma one day at a time. I want to give a big shout out to Sam and her family. Prayers. I know everything's on the mend, and I can't wait to have you back next week, Sam. So until next week, if you could be anything in this world, just be kind. Peace and stay safe.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.